And a very Merry Christmas to you, Central Georgia. Thanks for tuning in for the Christmas edition of your extended forecast. First and foremost, if you are tuning in early this Christmas morning, the number one, thank you for your support today. And I imagine not your first time watching this. So thank you for your support tuning in to this streaming segment all throughout the year since we have got it going. The main headline is going to be some record warm temperatures for your Christmas afternoon. It is looking like it is going to be the warmest Christmas we've ever seen here in Central Georgia. But first things first, if you missed it yesterday, we actually got an early update to your drought monitor. Although not much did really change, we still see an area of a severe drought over in our westernmost counties, and the rest of Central Georgia does remain in some form of a moderate drought criteria. So the data is taken as of this past Tuesday, December 23rd, and the drought information statement that comes out with all of these drought monitor updates. It has highlighted the potential for the steady worsening with some of these drought conditions as we go into the near future. We're not anticipating much rain over the next week. And as we have gone throughout the past week in Central Georgia, we really haven't seen much in the way of rain. So these conditions did get some slight improvement, mainly in light of all the rain that we did see in the first half of the month. But as we have been trending rather dry for the end of December, not looking like we're going to have much improvement. So continue to take care of all those outdoor plants that you do have, your backyard garden. Obviously the grass just turns that kind of nasty brown color this time of year. So the grass not too much of a concern, but maybe just occasionally run the sprinklers whenever you can get a chance. Because right now it is feeling like summer. Way too warm for Christmas. We still have the elf up here dancing with the palm trees. And yes, that's the joke I have made really over the past 2 days. We're singing Melikaliki Maka because it feels like a Hawaiian Christmas forecast here in Central Georgia. But as we head into the weekend, we do have a few sprinkle chances to talk about. Nothing really substantial in the way of rain. We'll just kind of highlight the times that we are expecting maybe a few light showers in nature. But a cold front will arrive as we go into next Monday, and that cold front is finally going to usher in some colder air into the forecast, and we will get rid of this stretch of the well above average temperatures. So typically we walk it around the quad here on this stream, and I forgot to change it to the quad view on the cameras, but each and every area in Central Georgia is the same. As we're trekking towards lunchtime here on this Christmas day, it is a story of clear blue skies. So that is going to continue to lead to a warm up, which already we see some temperatures into the low 70s. 70 degrees in Wrightsville, 70 in Sandersville, 72 in Milledgeville, Macon over to Thomaston, 73 up in Forsyth. But the warmest number we can spot, 74 already in Dublin. We still have a few areas that are scattered about the upper 60s, even the mid 60s over here in Swainsboro. Consider yourself lucky if you're holding on to these slightly cooler temperatures for just a little while longer. I imagine most areas are feeling like the 70-degree mark at the very least, as some of those 60s probably have just taken a while to get an update. But it's a bit different. Back over to the west in Montgomery, 59 degrees, and that's mainly attributed to some fog that has been in the picture back over into Alabama this morning. But 68 in Jackson, 72 in Panama City, that matches the number here in Macon. So this is the first time in quite a while that actually, with this current view of the temperatures all across the East United States, that we have a temperature warmer in Central Georgia than we see anywhere else across the country. 73 is the warmest number we spot down in Orlando. 74 was the current temperature in Dublin. So Dublin, you are all alone today in terms of your high temperature, or not high temperature, excuse me, your current temperature, but you may be all alone in the fact that your temperature this afternoon is going to be warmer than most of the rest of the country. As you walk outside, you are noticing some steady winds coming out of the west, anywhere from about maybe 5 to 10 miles per hour. None of those gusts that are up to 15 or 20 miles per hour like we have seen as of recent days. But I imagine the breeze probably feels pretty welcome because it's actually going to act as maybe a bit of a cooling mechanism for some of the very warm temperatures that are continuing to settle in. But let's go ahead and talk about Christmas Eve yesterday. 46 for a morning low, obviously a good deal above average, 9 degrees above average as a matter of fact. But it was all about the afternoon high temperature yesterday. I was joking around with my mom yesterday and she was saying, I think it felt every bit of 80 degrees. And I'm like, I don't know about that. I forecasted a high of 77 degrees. Well, sometimes the weatherman is indeed wrong. And yes, 77, that was a record that we had set for Christmas Eve all time. We blew that out of the water. 81 degrees for a recorded high temperature, 21 degrees above average for this time of year. So yes, it was unseasonably warm, but it was the warmest Christmas Eve we've ever seen by a pretty good margin as of yesterday afternoon. Obviously, your record high temperature in the upper 70s didn't even come close. We probably hit those numbers sometime just after the midday hour. I remember doing midday yesterday and we were already seeing some 75s pop up on the temperature map. So we just went a little above and beyond what was forecasted. And that's my fault. I went with what the models were saying and I banked on matching that record high temperature. But as of recently, we've been going over what the models have been saying. So I did elect to use that criteria in my forecasted high temperature for today, which you will see in a moment. But first things first, sunrise 7:34, sunset at 5:34. So exactly 10 hours of daylight that we continue to have. But the days are going to continue to get longer as we now have crossed over the winter solstice, that first day of winter, which was this past Sunday. And although it hasn't necessarily felt like winter, this is causing a shift in our hours of daylight. So the days will continue to get longer in terms of those hours of daylight. And I have highlighted a few important dates that we need to look out for as we go into the beginning of the new year. So exactly on January 1st, the first day of 2026, that's going to start a stretch where we do have our latest sunrise, I was about to say earliest, our latest sunrise that we will see during standard time, that is. Now, of course, the sunrise will get a little bit later once we enter daylight saving time once again. But 7:37 going to be that latest sunrise during standard time. And then the sunset is going to be pretty close to 5:40 at 5:39 p.m. on January 1st, just over 10 hours of daylight. All in all, not too different from what we currently see in terms of hours of daylight. But then as we progress throughout the first month of the new year, January 25th, 7:33 a.m. sunrise. So notice that the sunrise continues to get a little bit earlier after we hit that latest sunrise time at 7:37. But then that is going to mark the first time that your sunset returns back to the 6 p.m. hour. Still way too early, I'm sure, for lots of your likings. However, I do believe that this is going to be the beginning of a much better stretch of weather and a much better time of day. Obviously, we want as much sunlight as we can get, and just under 10 and a half hours of daylight will be present at the end of the month of January. So it looks like throughout January, we're going to gain somewhere in the neighborhood of around 30 minutes of daylight time. And then it's all the way into March 8th that I could really find the next important date. I was going to go ahead and show you with the first time that we are going to see maybe a 7 a.m. sunrise, which is just before March 8th as a matter of a fact. But then we enter daylight saving time again. So go ahead and mark your calendars. The second Sunday in the month of March, the first Sunday is actually going to be March 1st itself. But as you go into the first couple of days of March, that's when we are going to spring forward. So your sunrise is actually going to get an hour later. This would mean that without this time change, your sunrise would be around 6:53 in the morning. Sunrise is going to be a little bit closer to 8 a.m. as we go into the beginning of March. And then sunset, we get a drastic change with that. 7:37 p.m., kind of back to your regularly scheduled programming, and just under 12 hours of daylight, 11 hours and 43 minutes of daylight as we go into the beginning of March. So that is going to be the next time that we have to worry about that time shift. And when we spring forward, you are unfortunately going to lose an hour of sleep. But I'm sure by that time you were just going to be so tired of the 5:30 or the pre-6 p.m. sunsets. So that is going to be a welcome change. You will finally have the sun setting at a more reasonable time when it should get dark, say around 7:30 in the evening. But let's go ahead and talk about yesterday one more time. 81 degrees for that recorded high temperature, which marked the 8th day in a row that we have been above average going back into last Wednesday on December 17th. So your tally of above average days is now up to 10 for the month of December. That number was well shy of that 12 tally that we do see for below average days. And it has been an extended stretch of warmer weather, but believe it or not, we still have not had as many above average days as we've had below average days for the month of December so far, just showing you how much of a cold stretch that we did have to begin the month of December, which really feels like forever ago. Not to worry, we are going to see this above average number, that tally, get above 12 as we go throughout the next couple of days, because your forecasted highs are still well above average until we get just before New Year's Eve. In fact, on December 30th, that's going to be the next time that I have a forecasted high that is below average. So we had some patchy morning fog a little bit earlier this morning. That was very quick to dissipate, get out of the picture. That will also continue to be a factor as we go into tomorrow morning and Saturday morning, which we'll talk about in just a moment. But the main headline is warmest Christmas ever, and that is with a question mark. However, I am very confident that it is going to be the warmest Christmas ever, because take a look at what I did with my high temperature. It's been at 77 all throughout the work week. Now I have a forecasted high of 80 degrees. After seeing what happened yesterday, having an almost identical setup with today's forecast, and obviously we went well above what the model said yesterday, and we went well above what the graphics have said. So that's why I did elect to go with the 80-degree mark. So 20 degrees above average, and yes, 80 degrees would be the warmest Christmas we have ever seen. The record high temperature for today all time has actually been set 3 times in history. Earliest back in 1982, and then within the past decade, 2015 and 2016, back-to-back years that we did have a record warm Christmas, but today is also looking to blow that out of the water, and we're on a pretty good track so far with some areas as high as 74 degrees already in Dublin, and we still haven't even entered that window of our warmest temperatures this afternoon. So we should expect to hit those 1 to 2, maybe 3 p.m. Still think 2 to 4 p.m. is kind of that range where we do typically hit our high temperature. Only peaking at 77. Like I said, we've gone above and beyond what this graphic has said over recent days, really over the past week or two in general. So I do have confidence that we will see some numbers higher than 77 later today. And then the numbers drop into the mid 70s as you approach sunset. After the sun does officially set at 5:34 p.m., that's when we drop the numbers back down into the upper 60s. And it's going to once again be a very pleasant evening, like we were talking about for Santa Claus making his way through as of yesterday. But let's go ahead and talk about your satellite and radar. So obviously we've talked a whole lot about numbers. Do we have anything in the way of rain in our forecast? Well, it looks mostly clear. We have cloud cover off to the east, down to the southeast, a cluster of some clouds up there to the northwest. Nothing that's resulting in anything in the way of rain right now, and that cloud cover will continue to steadily get out of the picture as we go throughout the rest of today. So here's a look at future view. 1 p.m., just about an hour or two in advance, still mostly clear skies. That continues as we go closer to sunset, and then we wrap up Christmas and head into December 26th, highly known as Boxing Day, because obviously a lot of you are already starting to put away the Christmas decorations and stuff. That's kind of where the name Boxing Day did get its token name. However, as we go into the beginning of tomorrow, mostly sunny, not picking up on fog once again. We'll talk about that in just a second. Going into the afternoon, still looking good to go. And Friday afternoon into the evening, also looking good to go. And that's looking quite different than, say, the forecast did as of the last couple of days. And then as we go into Saturday, you did see that passing cloud cover. Within some clouds that are present, mainly earlier in the day on Saturday, we could maybe see a couple of isolated drizzles, maybe a couple sprinkles. Overall, not going to amount to much in the way of rain, not even going to put a damper on any outdoor plans that you do have, but it should be a story of on and off cloud cover as we go throughout the weekend. But let's go ahead and show you some fun graphics. It is Christmas after all. We have to stay in the good mood all afternoon long. So here's a look at your temperatures that you can expect. And obviously your oven temperature is going to be a whole lot warmer than these numbers. But around 75 as we go into the noon hour. And we see some numbers that are already really close to that as of right now. 4 p.m., somewhere around 79 degrees. I don't think we'll quite be at that peak afternoon temperature, maybe just slightly lower. We will begin the steady cool down. And as we go into the evening hours, 68 degrees, maybe even a little bit lower according to the last graphic that we saw. But I went above the numbers that showed because I went with a high temperature that was above the numbers that it showed later this afternoon. So 80 for a high temperature on Christmas. Definitely going to be some t-shirt and shorts weather. I know that's exactly what I wore into work today. So obviously dress accordingly. You're not going to need those heavy layers that you typically would on a Christmas afternoon where it is still a tad bit chilly. Those thick Christmas pajamas, you're definitely going to want to think twice before heading outside wearing those fleece pajamas that are going to maybe may even make you sweat. I definitely did not think I'd be talking about sweating on Christmas, but nonetheless, the numbers go down slightly as we head into the weekend. No real change, mid 70s for highs, and then we introduce that 10% chance of a sprinkle starting on Saturday, which will also go all the way into your Sunday forecast as well. So once again, the future view fog graphic is picking up on some patchy fog as you go into the morning hours tomorrow. It's very short-lived, just like this morning's was. And then as we transition into Saturday morning, we could also see the return of some of that surface level cloud cover. And even as we go all the way into Sunday, that's what happens when you have moisture in the forecast this time of year. Your actual temperatures and your dew point temperatures are very close together, meaning that it is going to be a more humid atmosphere as you go into those overnight hours. And obviously your dew point temperatures, they get a little bit of separation from the actual temperature. Your dew point temperatures are not going to be at 80 degrees this afternoon. If we had that happen, then obviously we'd be talking about a summertime forecast, probably about a 20% chance of a thunderstorm. That not going to happen whatsoever. Your dew point temperature is going to be somewhere in the 50s, very likely. We typically just see a decrease in the humidity content this time of year, but that's what your overnight lows do drop to over the next couple of days. So that is going to be very close to what the actual temperatures sit at. So Sunday, you can still see the thin chance of maybe a few spotty showers. And the recent trend really over the last day or so that we have seen, this frontal boundary that we are eyeing for the beginning of next week looks like it's going to come through during the day on Monday. You can see 6 a.m. right here. There's a whole lot of rain to the north and the northwest of us. That frontal boundary doesn't hold together too well as it passes through. I think we'll see more coverage than the long-range models are picking up on because this frontal boundary is going to run into a pretty humid atmosphere, at least for this time of year. So I think we will see a decent coverage of at least some scattered showers, not predicting anything in the way of severe weather or anything in the way of storms. But this frontal boundary will create a cloudy and maybe a bit of a dreary atmosphere for the beginning of the week next week, and that is going to help keep the high temperatures down just a touch. But after it passes through, the story is going to be some cold temperatures. And I know it says New Year's Eve. I guess I forgot to move the timestamps just a little bit right there, or I misplaced the timestamps. It's looking crystal clear as you go into the New Year's holiday, so that is going to be something you're very thankful for. However, you are going to want to bundle up for the New Year's holiday. Afternoon high temperatures are still warm, still well above average, but not quite as warm as yesterday or today as you go into the weekend. And that's mainly just driven by a steady increase in cloud cover at certain times in the afternoon. So that's why the numbers go down just slightly, and our ridging pattern that has been resulting in the very warm temperatures is moving off to the east just a little bit. Right now we're right in the middle of it. As it moves farther away out of the picture, your temperatures aren't going to warm up as much as they could have. Then we go down to 67 degrees as we go into Monday. I know a little dad joke right there on Christmas. I'll go ahead and stop right there, but it will be a little bit cooler. Still a good amount above average, 7 degrees above average as you go into Monday afternoon. It is still going to be a relatively warm afternoon, but it's going to feel a whole lot better than, say, the warm numbers in the 70s and near 80 that we do have for the near future. Now let's take a look at your morning lows. Not too much variation on these. The more cloud cover that's present overnight into the early morning hours will result in some warmer numbers like 56 that you do see on Saturday morning. And then we are still hovering well above average by about 16 to 17 degrees on both Sunday and Monday. And then finally, the numbers will drop. Here's a look at your 7-day forecast where that drop is very substantial. How about this? High of 74 on Sunday. That goes down over a 48-hour period of a decrease of about, I'm trying to do some mental math right here, I believe that's 25 degrees right there. So obviously feeling like two different seasons at different portions of your 7-day forecast. 49 for a high temperature on Tuesday. I do expect Tuesday afternoon to be the coldest high temperature that we do have, but I expect Wednesday morning, New Year's Eve morning, to be the coldest low temperature that we do see. But it still looks like we are going to be below average as we roll into New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, maybe even into the end of the week next week as you go into January 2nd, the 3rd, and the 4th, of course. But I do have a better rain chance than what was popping up on the long-range models. Like I said, mainly because of the fact we are going to have more moisture in the forecast as we go into Monday. And that frontal boundary does look to be passing through during maybe the warmest portion of the afternoon. So it should have some slightly warm numbers, maybe in the upper 60s, and a little bit of moisture to work with, which could create some better coverage of rain. Not a bad thing. We could definitely use the rain. Like I was telling you with that drought monitor update at the beginning of this, it does look like this may be our most substantial rain chance as we have over the next week, week and a half, maybe even going on into 2 weeks. Not seeing any signs of a widespread rainmaker early in January as of right now, but we'll continue to keep you updated as we get closer. Don't be surprised if you see an occasional sprinkle shower throughout Saturday and Sunday this weekend. It's not going to be widespread. It's just only going to be over a select few areas, and it's not going to put a damper on any outdoor plans. Going to be a very light rain shower, and you're probably not even going to be able to tell that it rained because it's not going to dump a substantial amount of rain on the surface, creating maybe some of those wet roads and slick conditions whatsoever. So the warmest Christmas ever, that is what we're keeping an eye out for later this afternoon. After that, afternoon highs go down just a little bit, but it is still going to be warm this weekend. Still going to be some t-shirt and shorts weather. Maybe you got a new golf polo from Santa. I'm keeping my fingers crossed that I have one of those when I go home. So I'm definitely going to be sporting it when hitting the links later this weekend. But then the cool down begins, a bit more of an active weather day next Monday, and then it will start to clear out as we go into the midway point of the week next week, transition into the last day of 2025, and say hello to 2026 with finally some below average numbers. Looks like January could get off to a start maybe like December did, maybe not necessarily as long with the extended below average temperatures. However, a colder spell of weather is going to be a welcome change. This is way too warm for Christmas, and a Christmas that we have not seen like any other in recent history. So we'll continue to keep you updated where that record stands today, what we officially record, and if we did maybe break only about a 9-year record, I guess technically, the last time that we hit 78 degrees. I have a lot of confidence in that happening, but the good news is hopefully we can get out of that record-breaking criteria with a steady increase of on and off cloud cover throughout the rest of your weekend. So a very Merry Christmas to you, Central Georgia. Thank you so much for tuning in. Like I said, I appreciate your support, not only today if you're watching, but also all throughout the year. It's obviously been a relatively calm stretch of weather as of recently. Haven't had to talk about much in the way of severe weather, but that all will change as we go into the early portion of the year and enter our severe weather season sometime in late February, going into March, April, and May. So obviously we'll have a lot more active weather systems, some storms to talk about, and that's when you're really going to want to stay updated, and I can fill you in a lot more detail about what's going to be ahead when we do have that severe weather risk. We'll cross that bridge once we get there. Until then, have a very Merry Christmas. Have a very Happy New Year. I'm going to take some time off after today, and I will be back on January 2nd. So for all your extended forecast needs, Amsley Parker is going to have you covered tomorrow morning and throughout the first part of the work week next week. So I will see you all next year, January 2nd in 2026. Until then, like I said, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, a Happy New Year, and make sure that you have a safe holiday as well.